A lot of the people building this system are people that are debt barons, essentially. I mean, BlackRock in particular had a really big role to play in the whole COVID monetary situation. At the same 2019 Jackson Hole meeting where Mark Carney talked about, the new financial system to come, is when BlackRock presented their going direct paper, which was the policy that was followed essentially and exactly when COVID hit, just a few months later. And BlackRock utilizes debt to, increase its profitability and power and ownership of things around the world. And honestly, since debt's been such a big part of the control system for a long time, it's, the people that can control the most debt on Wall Street and stuff tend to be the most powerful and the most successful, right? It seems like in Larry Fink's case in particular, there's a goal, a big ambition there to develop new asset classes that can be used to basically fuel their existing business model and perpetuate it for millennia forward. So one of these that I've been writing about for a few years is the whole idea of natural assets, what they call nature's economy. And one of the groups that has been sort of propelling this forward, at least one of the earlier groups, the Intrinsic Exchange Group, which is a product of the Rockefeller Foundation and the multilateral development banking system, has a graphic on their website called The Opportunity, and they show there the existing amount of assets in the world economy, and then show what it, if we unlock natural assets, how nature's economy, it's like 6 times the amount of existing assets in the economy today. And so as an asset manager, BlackRock being able to unlock and take control of as many natural assets as possible that aren't currently part of the financial system is obviously a way for them to perpetuate what they do and deepen and expand their control over not just people in the existing financial system, but really over the natural world as well, and essentially turn everything alive into a tradable Wall Street financial product. And the goal, as Fink has stated, is to have all of this on a universal ledger, on blockchain presumably, and have it be trackable and surveillable, which is interesting if you look at it through the context of risk management, which is something that Larry Fink is very open as having been one of the guiding lights of his whole career. And so by having it all surveillable and automated in a sense, he's able to have his risk management AI thing, Aladdin, sort of exercise control over it in unprecedented ways, I think, for their benefit. And then, of course, a lot of what's happening now as we're moving into this new financial governance system is the push to change all of the infrastructure towards this, quote unquote, a green model, I guess, or decarbonization, right? Which is, of course, interface with the global carbon market, but not necessarily so, like it doesn't have to be. But the push is obviously to create a bunch of new infrastructure all over the world, and BlackRock is positioning themselves to be one of the key players in that space. They acquired, I think they're called GIP, one of the biggest infrastructure, developers in the world. And I think one of their top guys at Davos just a few months ago was talking about how they're betting really big on infrastructure going forward, and it's going to be one of the biggest investment opportunities of the next several decades, actually. So I think they're quite ambitious, and if people aren't aware of this, I'm sure they'll get away with it, but we'll see.
Yeah, so basically they want to use our retirement money to gamble on the privatization of energy and infrastructure of the global south.
Well, they want to build the infrastructure both for the carbon markets and for the decarbonized world. They're using retirement assets of Americans, pension funds and all of that to finance the constructing of what is essentially our debt-based panopticon.
Are you seeing any sort of mechanisms or investment in certain types of companies that would allow basically a trusted oracle service like this to be able to say your tree is here, or your rainforest square mileage is here, or your piece of gold is here? Are you seeing anything like that will help that?
Yeah, there's a few companies that I mentioned in the tokenized ink piece that are sort of trying to position themselves that way. So you have, in the case of global carbon markets or the infrastructure for it, you have a company like Flow Carbon that's like tokenizing the assets, and they're tokenizing carbon credits that are produced by another high integrity carbon credit standardization company. One of these, there's a couple different names for them. I think there's like 5 prominent ones, and then those are the ones, between the two of them, that's how they claim to verify all these reserves, to avoid some of the scandals of carbon markets when they attempted to launch them in the past, of double counting, or the offsets weren't really real, or they were giving carbon credits for forests that they said were being saved from logging, but they were never in danger to begin with. And some of these controversies they're trying to get around with, claiming that, not unlike Fink does, the idea that like having it on blockchain magically is going to eliminate corruption.
Right, eliminates corruption.
Which is funny, because I think the way that they're able to perpetuate their corruption that they've been able to get away with in these ostensibly highly regulated markets we already have, that I think the way they're going to do it in this model is through these trusted third parties. Just the trust us guys, they'll be able to manage our stuff, the surf stuff, and not let us get away with anything probably, but the big guys at the top, I'm sure, will be able to manipulate those trusted third parties. And in a lot of the cases, of like Oracle, companies that act as those oracles, like a Chainlink, I guess, you have prominent major big tech oligarchs like Eric Schmidt being intimately involved with their rise. And will they be beholden to those oligarchs at some point if they're like, we need you to do this and that? Right. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely happened in the past, so why wouldn't it happen in the new era? I mean, would blockchain prevent that? I mean, not necessarily. I think it's likely, too, that either the national governments or the UN or somebody like that is going to choose who the trusted third parties are. They're going to be the kingmakers of who gets to serve in that role. And so they're able to choose the ones that are most compliant to their needs, or the ones that they created in the first place to serve the specific purpose, and things of that nature. But to think that the fact that a lot of these corrupt entities that we know are corrupt or have engaged in corruption, BlackRock, JP Morgan, et cetera, are some of the key architects of the system, to think that they would all of a sudden not engage in that activity when they're the ones building this system. It's not like they're going to build a new system that ties their hands back, They're going to be able to engage in business as usual. And I think part of the goal of the whole global carbon market thing for them is that it allows them to unlock so many new assets and so much more collateral and so much other stuff to create new debt out of, and to just sort of expand the existing models they use to just unprecedented levels, and sort of perpetuate this into infinity. I don't know. I mean, it's just really crazy to think about, but I think honestly, the reason they haven't abandoned the global carbon market is because they need that new asset class that's so enormous. Because one of the things too about the natural asset thing, at least as far as the natural asset corporation model is concerned, is that you literally just go into a forest or you go to a river or lake and you identify the natural asset, and then at no cost to you, just after identifying it, you issue shares in the natural asset, a lake, a forest, whatever, and then you sell those shares to sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, whatever, and then you have an IPO and generate all this money. I mean, it's literally just pointing out something outside and being like, this is mine, I'm going to fractionalize it and sell it to people, and you're producing money in like, out of thin air, essentially. Yeah. And you're able to do that. I mean, the natural world is vast and huge, and they're doing this, they're financializing it all, as framing it as the only way to save the planet. Right. But really, it's the only way for them to save their insane debt racket.
Right. And it's funny too, because I think there's a parallel here that you've talked a lot about, where it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain playing with the blockchains and who's validating the blockchains. Yeah. Howie Lutnick of Cantor, specifically said, hey, if you want something seized, Tether's great, you just call Tether. Ethereum's great, you just call Joe Lubin. You call the guy behind the decentralized theater to blacklist the person or do whatever. Reminds me kind of a little bit of how the AI play is probably going to go, right? It's like, oh, it's AI that's in charge. It's AI that's in control of all these things. But really, it's the keepers of the AI.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you have to pay attention to the people that are tweaking the AI, programming its objective functions that maintain it. They're able to manipulate it, and there is definitely a coordinated push to put AI in charge of as much of everything really as possible, and allows them to sort of follow what I call the Wizard of Oz model, be the man behind the curtain, but have AI be sort of this layer between you and the public that gives you sort of allows you to never be accountable for anything. You can just either blame everything on the AI, or say like AI is superior to human intelligence, and therefore, it's not our fault and we should trust what it says. Computer says yes, computer says no. And, I think it's very likely that AI, following that same model, is going to have a very big role in this coming, digital financial system.